Hello and welcome to Unit 8 Statistics. We are going to do lesson number 7, Measures of Variability. Your objective for this lesson is to find the range of a data set, to find the interquartile range of a data set, and check for outliers in a data set. Your essential question: how can you describe the spread of a data set? Measure of variability, or measure of variation, is a measure that describes the distribution of the data set. A simple measure of variation is to find that range. And remember, the range of a data set is the difference between the greatest value and the least value. So the measure of variability is a way of describing that spread of that data. It can also be used to describe how much the data deviates from the center. So how far is it from the center? And here I have a visual of two bell curves, and the red one, it's narrower, so the spread is not as great as the blue bell curve that has a bigger or longer spread. Quartiles divide the data set into 4 equal-sized parts. Recall that we found the median, and when we did that, it split that data into 2 equal halves. We had what was the lower half, and we had the upper half. The lower half, that median, is the first quartile, which we call Q1, and in the upper half, that median is the third quartile, Q3. So we can find the interquartile range by first ordering the data from least to greatest, finding that median, so we split it in half, and then finding the median of that lower and the upper quartiles. And then what we're going to do is subtract to find the IQR, which is interquartile range. The interquartile range represents the range of the data from the middle half of that data, and it's another measure of variation like mean, median, mode. Our first task is to take this data set and find the interquartile range and answer some questions. This data represents the different cost of a camera at an electronics store. So I have these dollar amounts, and the first thing I want to do is order them from least to greatest, which is A. And I can easily see that 28 is my minimal price, and my maximum is 108. I have 7 data points, so I can easily look and see the middle number, which is the median, is 59. And then I have my lower quartile, and I have 3 data points, so the middle or the median is 36. And I have my upper quartile, and I have 3 data points. They should be the same as the first, and my median is 71. Okay, so we did that just like we did in the other lesson. So that interquartile range is subtracting the 71 minus the 35, which gives me 35. Now we're going to talk about MAD. No, I don't mean the angry kind of mad. I mean mean absolute deviation, which is the average of how much data values differ from the mean. And it's another measure of variation. So the mean, the MAD, measures the spread of the data in relation to the mean, or the average. And it can be found by following the steps. First, you're going to find the mean of that data, and you're going to find the difference between each piece of that data and its mean. You're going to take the absolute value of each deviation and then the sum of the deviations, and then you're going to divide that by the number of pieces of data, which is the mean absolute deviation. The closer it is to 0, the data, that means that it's the values are close. The farther from 0 means those data pieces that has a bigger or a wider spread. So our task is to take this data and calculate the MAD. 7 different students were asked the number of family members in their household. When we're calculating the MAD, the first thing we want to do is find the mean of our data. So I'm going to add those up and divide by the 7 since I have 7 data points. And when I do that, I get a mean of 3. Second, we're going to find the distance between each data value and the mean. And I'm going to do that by subtracting 3, taking the absolute value when I subtract from each data point, and that will give me the absolute deviation from the mean. Once I subtract that, I can go ahead now and add the absolute deviation from the mean up. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 gives me 7. And now I'm going to find the mean of the absolute deviation from the mean. So 7 divided by 7, because I have 7 data points, gives me a mean absolute deviation of 1. Explain what this means for the size of the family surveyed. Well, the average number of the family members from the mean of 3 is 2. Our next example, we have a table that represents the amount of time in minutes it took Brianna to finish her homework this week. So in order to calculate the MAD, I'm going to start by finding the mean of my data. So I'm going to add those points up, get 120 divided by 6, and that will give me 20. Second, I'm going to find that distance between each data value and the mean. So I'm going to take the absolute value, so 20 minus each of those times. And now I have the absolute deviation of the mean. So now I'm going to calculate the total absolute deviation by adding up these points. And when I do that, I get 32. And then I'm going to take the mean of the absolute deviation from the mean by dividing by 6, because that's how many data points we have. And I get a repeating decimal, so 5 3/10. So what does that MAD represent? Does it represent a large or a small amount of variability, and why do you think? So if you recall in the beginning, I said if it was close to 0, it had a small spread, and then the farther from 0, the larger the spread. So the average number of minutes that it takes her to finish her homework from the mean is 5 3/10. So that data varies quite a bit. So it's a larger spread. Next up, we have the following data that represents the number of cars running the red light at an intersection of Main Street and Avenue A over a period of 2 weeks. That's quite a bit. So first thing we need to do is put that data in order. Now that I did that, I'm going to look for the median and the interquartile range. So remember, the median is that middle number. And I have 14 data points, so I have an even number. So I have two numbers that are in my middle, 12 and 14. So the median number is going to be 13. Then I'm going to take my lower quartile and find that median, and I'm going to find the median of my upper quartile. So again, I have an even number, so I have two numbers, and since 9 plus 9 is 18 divided by 2 is 9, I get 9 for my lower quartile, and I get 18 for my upper quartile. And to find that difference, I'm going to subtract, which gives me an interquartile range of 9. Well, we've completed another lesson, measures of variability. If you have any questions or unsure of anything, please write your question in the discussion in the Google Classroom. If you're doing your Khan Academy or IXL and you run into some questions, again, put those questions in the Google Classroom discussion page and make sure you do your exit ticket before going on to Lesson 8. And I just have a little bit of your key ideas or concepts one last time. Thank you for watching the video.